Trump declared on Tuesday, July 21, 2026, that the United States will target any Iranian nuclear site, and this time, nobody should mistake that statement for a bluff. Step by step, the United States and Iran have returned closer to all-out war, as last month's interim deal, meant to permanently end the fighting, has crumbled, and shipping traffic in the Strait of Hormuz has stalled. The question now is brutally simple. Can anything stop what comes next? To understand how we got here, you have to go back over a year. On June 22, 2025, the United States Air Force and Navy attacked 3 nuclear facilities in Iran under the codename Operation Midnight Hammer. The target list included Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. United States officials said all 3 sites sustained extremely severe damage and destruction, with Natanz destroyed and Fordo and Isfahan suffering major damage. Trump declared that the strikes had completely and totally obliterated Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities. A Pentagon assessment in July 2025 found that Iran's nuclear program was likely set back around 2 years. The International Atomic Energy Agency said the sites had suffered enormous damage. But it wasn't enough to end the story, not even close. Iran suspended cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency in July 2025. Then, in February 2026, Trump contradicted his prior claims that the Iranian nuclear program had been obliterated by asserting that Iran was rebuilding it. That reversal exposed a hard truth. A bombing campaign buys time, but it doesn't buy permanence. The June 2025 strikes severely damaged Iran's major uranium enrichment facilities, but not its resolve to retain a nuclear program or its nuclear know-how. Tehran began quietly reconstituting what it could, and Washington was watching every move. The Strait of Hormuz increasingly became a focal point of the war in early 2026. On March 21st, Trump threatened to target Iran's civilian energy infrastructure if Iran did not agree to allow ships to pass through the strait without interference. One of the world's most critical oil arteries had become a hostage in a confrontation that was spiraling far beyond anyone's original script. The danger of crossfire and threats from Iran led to severe disruption of traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most volatile oil choke points, leading to fuel shortages in parts of Asia and rippling effects across the global economy. This wasn't just a military standoff anymore. It was a global economic emergency unfolding in slow motion. So what pulled the two sides back from the edge, at least temporarily? After more than 5 weeks of fighting, the United States and Iran agreed on April 7th and 8th to a ceasefire that included Israel. The agreement reopened the key waterway through which about a quarter of the world's oil travels. The Memorandum of Understanding also gave Washington and Tehran 60 days to negotiate Iran's nuclear program, and immediately waived United States sanctions on Iranian crude oil, petroleum products, and derivatives. It looked, for a moment, like a way out. It wasn't. On June 14th, mediators announced a Memorandum of Understanding intended to bring the conflict to a formal end within 60 days of its signing. But in July, the conflict resumed after Iran struck 3 commercial vessels that bypassed its pre-approved route. That was the trigger. The ceasefire didn't just crack, it shattered. Greg Roman, executive director of the Middle East Forum, argued that Washington and Tehran entered the negotiating period with fundamentally different objectives. The United States saw it as an opportunity to get a long-term agreement, Roman told Fox News Digital. The Iranians saw it as an opportunity to rearm. That assessment hits harder now than ever. And this is where things stand today, July 21st, 2026, with the situation more dangerous than at any point in the past year. Iran has fired drones and missiles at Kuwait, Bahrain, and Jordan after an 8th consecutive night of attacks by the United States on Iranian cities, including on the partly built Darkovan nuclear facility. The Darkovan strike marked a new threshold. The United States wasn't just hitting military targets, it was putting nuclear infrastructure back in its crosshairs. The Darkovan power plant is in the very early stages of construction, and the reported attack is unlikely to pose any radiological risk, the watchdog said, but called for military restraint in the vicinity of all nuclear sites. That warning has gone unheeded. If you want to understand what drives this escalation, subscribe now, because what Trump just threatened today makes the Darkovan strike look like a warm-up, and the next moves could reshape the entire region. 2 United States service members in Jordan were killed last week during an Iran-linked attack. A third United States troop was killed in Iraq on Saturday. The fallen soldiers in Jordan were identified as First Lieutenant Tyler James Feehan, 25, of Eva Beach, Hawaii, and Private Isabella Gonzalez, 19, of Carrollton, Texas. Those names are now the fuel driving everything that follows. During the 8th consecutive night of United States strikes, United States Central Command forces successfully hit Iranian military coastal surveillance and air defense facilities, maritime capabilities, and missile and drone storage sites. American military assets also targeted Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps forces that launched attacks against United States service members in Jordan on July 17th. The United States conducted its 10th consecutive night of strikes on Iran as Iran attacked a tanker off the coast of Oman in the Strait of Hormuz early on the morning of July 21st. United States Central Command said it had targeted Iranian military command centers, maritime capabilities, missile and drone launch sites, and air defense systems. 10 consecutive nights. That is not a response, that is a campaign. On Tuesday, July 21st, President Trump said the United States will target any Iranian nuclear site, as explosive drones were intercepted near the United States consulate in Erbil, Iraq. The drone interception in Erbil wasn't a footnote. It was a signal that Iran's reach now threatens American diplomatic personnel across the region. 3 sources told Reuters that Iran's leadership had discussed using the Houthis to shut the Bab el-Mandeb Strait and recently conveyed the request to the group. A source close to the Houthis said missiles and drones had been deployed near the waterway and that the group was awaiting an order to begin attacking shipping. 2 choke points at once, the Strait of Hormuz and the Bab el-Mandeb. Iran is playing for maximum economic leverage. Jordan's military said that Iran targeted it with 5 drones and 3 missiles on July 21st, all of which were shot down. Kuwait reported that one Iranian attack started a fire at a power and water plant. The strikes on Gulf allies are no longer symbolic. They're hitting the infrastructure that millions of civilians depend on every day. Trump made his nuclear position explicit, telling reporters that the missile barrages are aimed at ensuring Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon. What we're doing now is we're ending any chance where they can have a nuclear missile, Trump told reporters. Trump has also stated that the United States will be striking Iran's Pickaxe Mountain, probably pretty soon. Pickaxe Mountain, known in Persian as Ku-e-Kolang, has long been associated with potential deeply buried military and nuclear-related facilities. Naming it publicly is not accidental. It is a message to Tehran delivered through a megaphone. More than 50,000 United States men and women in uniform are operating across the Middle East. That force posture makes Trump's threats far more than rhetoric. The aircraft, the warships, and the munitions are already in position. Now here's the counter case, and it deserves honest engagement. Iran has absorbed enormous punishment, and it hasn't collapsed. Iran's health ministry said at least 35 people were killed and more than 300 injured since fighting resumed last week. The civilian cost is real, but Tehran's leadership has shown it will absorb that cost rather than surrender its nuclear ambitions. Trump said the United States would support new Israeli strikes against Iran's missile program and threatened to take military action immediately if Tehran takes steps to rebuild its nuclear program. But the intelligence and analytical community remains divided on how much rebuilding has actually taken place. Israeli intelligence assessed that the sites were damaged, but that Iran's nuclear program has not been destroyed. If the program isn't fully gone, then the threat of future strikes doesn't eliminate the problem, it only defers it. The June 2025 attacks severely damaged Iran's major uranium enrichment facilities, but not its resolve to retain a nuclear program or its nuclear know-how. That distinction is the crux of everything. Knowledge can't be bombed, scientists rebuild, centrifuges can be replaced. But here's what that counter case can't undo. The campaign has seen the United States target bridges, water desalination plants, and electrical facilities in Iran. The pressure on Iran's population is extraordinary and growing. The regime faces internal strain it hasn't seen in years. And Trump is now personally naming specific sites, Darkovan, Isfahan, Pickaxe Mountain, in public statements. That level of specificity signals intent, not posturing. When asked about whether Trump is planning further retaliation for the killing of United States service members in Jordan, National Security Council spokesperson Wright said, "It's tragic to lose American lives, but this is a mission that will save countless lives going forward." He stated that Trump's focus is on degrading the Iranian ability to terrorize the world, to hold world commerce hostage, as they are doing right now, and to prevent Iran from getting nuclear weapons. That mission statement leaves no ambiguity. The administration has tied its credibility to stopping Iran's nuclear program, fully and permanently. What this story ultimately proves is that a ceasefire built on incompatible objectives isn't a ceasefire at all. It's a loaded pause. The interim deal gave Iran time to rearm and gave Washington time to reposition. And now both sides are back at war with even higher stakes on the table than before. So here's what the next days and weeks will decide. If Trump follows through and strikes Pickaxe Mountain or other intact nuclear-related facilities, does Iran escalate to a level that pulls other regional powers into direct combat? And at what point does this conflict become something the world can no longer contain? And the second question, if 10 consecutive nights of American strikes haven't broken the regime's willingness to fight, what would it actually take to force a genuine, verifiable end to Iran's nuclear ambitions? What do you think? Tell me in the comments.